Vladimir Putin's story begins in the grim reality of post-war Leningrad, now St. Petersburg. The city, scarred by the brutal siege during World War II, was a place of hardship and resilience. The streets bore the marks of conflict, and the people were rebuilding their lives amidst the ruins. It was in this environment that young Vladimir grew up, witnessing the stark realities of life in a city that had endured so much. Growing up in a communal apartment, young Putin developed a streetwise resilience. These communal apartments, known as kommunalkas, were a microcosm of Soviet society. Families shared kitchens and bathrooms, and privacy was a luxury few could afford. In this close-quarters living, young Vladimir learned the importance of navigating complex social dynamics and the value of loyalty and trust. The communal life was tough, but it also fostered a sense of community and mutual dependence. He was drawn to stories of espionage and admired the power dynamics of the Soviet system. The tales of spies and secret agents captivated his imagination, offering a glimpse into a world of intrigue and influence. Soviet propaganda, with its emphasis on strength and vigilance, further fueled his fascination. These stories were not just entertainment, they were a window into the mechanisms of power and control that defined the Soviet state. This fascination led him to the world of the KGB, the Soviet Union's infamous intelligence agency. The KGB was more than just a spy organization, it was a symbol of Soviet power and authority. For Putin, joining the KGB was a way to be part of something larger than himself, to serve the state and protect its interests. It was a path that promised both prestige and the opportunity to wield significant influence. Putin joined the KGB in 1975 after graduating from Leningrad State University with a law degree. His education had equipped him with a deep understanding of the legal frameworks that governed Soviet society, and his KGB training would further hone his skills in intelligence and counterintelligence. The combination of legal knowledge and espionage expertise made him a formidable operative. He served primarily in East Germany, honing his skills in intelligence gathering and cultivating a network of contacts. East Germany, a key front in the Cold War, was a hotbed of espionage activity. Putin's work there involved not only gathering intelligence but also managing informants and conducting covert operations. His time in East Germany was a formative period, providing him with invaluable experience in the art of espionage. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 was a pivotal moment. For many, it was a time of uncertainty and upheaval. The once mighty Soviet state was fragmenting, and the old order was giving way to a new, unpredictable reality. For Putin, the dissolution of the Soviet Union was both a personal and professional turning point. It marked the end of the world he had known, and the beginning of a new chapter in his life. It left Putin disillusioned, but also presented an opportunity for him to reshape his destiny in the tumultuous landscape of the new Russia. The chaos of the 1990s, with its economic hardships and political instability, was a breeding ground for new power structures. Putin saw an opportunity to leverage his skills and experience to navigate this new environment. His background in the KGB had taught him the importance of adaptability and strategic thinking, qualities that would serve him well in the years to come. Putin's KGB background instilled in him a deep-seated belief in control and order. The KGB's emphasis on discipline and hierarchy left a lasting impression on him. He understood the importance of maintaining control, both over oneself and over others. This belief in order and control would become a cornerstone of his political philosophy, influencing his approach to governance and leadership. It also equipped him with the tools of surveillance, disinformation, and manipulation that would later define his political strategy. The techniques he learned in the KGB, spying, spreading misinformation, and manipulating public perception, became integral to his approach to politics. These methods allowed him to consolidate power and maintain a tight grip on the political landscape, ensuring that he remained in control. These formative experiences in the shadowy world of espionage would cast a long shadow over his future as he transitioned from a career in the shadows to the forefront of Russian politics. The skills and mindset he developed in the KGB would shape his approach to leadership, influencing his decisions and actions as he rose to power. From the streets of Leningrad to the corridors of the KGB and eventually to the highest echelons of Russian politics, Vladimir Putin's journey is a testament to the enduring impact of his early experiences. The chaotic years after the Soviet collapse saw the rise of oligarchs who amassed vast fortunes amidst economic instability. These oligarchs took advantage of the privatization of state assets, acquiring industries and resources at a fraction of their value. The economic crisis of the 1990s left many Russians in poverty, while a select few became extraordinarily wealthy. This period was marked by rampant corruption, lawlessness, and a lack of effective governance, creating a fertile ground for those who were willing to exploit the system for personal gain. Into this power vacuum stepped Vladimir Putin, a figure who promised stability and a return to greatness. Putin, a former KGB officer, was relatively unknown to the public when he was appointed prime minister in 1999. However, his tough stance on issues like the Chechen conflict and his promise to restore order quickly gained him popularity. By the time he became president in 2000, Putin had already positioned himself as a strongman who could bring the chaos of the 1990s to an end. His rise was swift, marked by a carefully crafted image as a strong leader capable of restoring order. Putin's public appearances often featured him in military attire or engaging in physically demanding activities, reinforcing his image as a man of action. His speeches were filled with promises of a stronger, more prosperous Russia, appealing to a population weary of instability and economic hardship. This image was meticulously managed by his team, ensuring that every public appearance contributed to the narrative of Putin as the savior of Russia. Putin's ascent was facilitated by a group of influential figures, mostly from the security services known as the Siloviki. These individuals, many of whom shared Putin's KGB background, played a crucial role in his consolidation of power. They occupied key positions within the government and used their influence to support Putin's agenda. The Siloviki were instrumental in implementing policies that strengthened the central government's control over the regions and curtailed the power of the oligarchs who had dominated the 1990s. These individuals, sharing Putin's KGB background, consolidated their grip on key institutions including the media, judiciary, and law enforcement. By placing loyalists in strategic positions, Putin ensured that these institutions would act in his favor. The media was brought under state control, the judiciary was used to target political opponents, and law enforcement agencies were employed to suppress dissent. This network of loyalists allowed Putin to maintain a tight grip on power and eliminate any potential threats to his rule. This control allowed Putin to silence dissent and consolidate his power, effectively dismantling the fragile democracy that had emerged in Russia after the fall of communism. Opposition figures were harassed, imprisoned, or forced into exile. Protests were met with a heavy-handed response from the police, and independent media outlets were shut down or taken over by the state. The democratic institutions that had begun to take root in the 1990s were systematically undermined, leaving little room for political pluralism or genuine opposition. One of the key pillars of Putin's power grab was the subjugation of the media. The Kremlin recognized the importance of controlling the narrative and took steps to ensure that the media would serve as a tool for propaganda. Independent television stations were taken over by state-owned companies, and critical journalists faced harassment, threats, and violence. The media was used to promote Putin's image and discredit his opponents, creating a controlled information environment that left little room for dissenting voices. Independent voices were silenced through intimidation, forced takeovers, and in some cases even violence. Journalists who dared to criticize the government faced severe consequences, including physical attacks and in some cases, murder. The climate of fear created by these actions led to widespread self-censorship, as many journalists chose to avoid topics that could put them at risk. This suppression of independent media ensured that the Kremlin's narrative would dominate the public discourse. This allowed the Kremlin to control the narrative, portraying Putin as a benevolent leader and demonizing his opponents. State-controlled media outlets portrayed Putin as a strong and capable leader who was restoring Russia's greatness. At the same time, opposition figures were depicted as traitors or foreign agents, undermining their credibility and support. This manipulation of public perception was a key element of Putin's strategy to maintain his grip on power. The result was a climate of fear and self-censorship, effectively crushing any meaningful opposition to Putin's rule. With the media under state control and political opponents marginalized, there was little room for dissenting voices. The Russian public was left with a one-sided narrative that glorified Putin and vilified his enemies. This environment of fear and control allowed Putin to maintain his power unchallenged, shaping Russia's political landscape for years to come. Under Putin's leadership, Russia has adopted an increasingly assertive foreign policy, characterized by military interventions and a willingness to challenge the West. This approach has been a defining feature of Putin's tenure, reflecting his vision of restoring Russia's influence and power on the global stage. The Kremlin's strategy involves not only direct military action, but also a complex web of political maneuvers, economic pressures, and information warfare aimed at destabilizing adversaries and expanding Russian influence. This shift was evident in the 2008 Russo-Georgian War, where Russia intervened militarily on behalf of separatists in South Ossetia and Abkhazia. The conflict marked a significant moment in post-Soviet history, showcasing Russia's readiness to use force to protect its interests and assert its dominance in the region. The war resulted in the recognition of South Ossetia and Abkhazia as independent states by Russia, despite widespread international condemnation and the refusal of most countries to follow suit. In 2014, Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine, a move widely condemned by the international community. The annexation was a bold and controversial act that violated international law and Ukraine's sovereignty. It was justified by the Kremlin through a disputed referendum, which claimed overwhelming support for joining Russia. The annexation led to severe economic sanctions from the West and a significant deterioration in Russia's relations with many countries. This annexation was followed by support for separatists in eastern Ukraine, further escalating tensions with the West. Russia's involvement in the conflict in eastern Ukraine has been characterized by a combination of covert military support, propaganda, and political pressure. The ongoing conflict has resulted in thousands of deaths and a humanitarian crisis with no clear resolution in sight. The situation has also led to a prolonged standoff between Russia and NATO, with both sides increasing their military presence in the region. These actions signaled Putin's determination to reassert Russia's dominance in its near abroad and re-establish itself as a major player on the global stage. Putin's foreign policy is driven by a desire to counter Western influence and promote a multipolar world order where Russia plays a central role. This has involved not only military interventions but also strategic alliances with countries like China and Iran, as well as efforts to undermine Western institutions and sow discord within democratic societies. Putin's military interventions have been accompanied by a resurgence of Russian military power. The modernization of the armed forces has been a top priority, with significant investments in new technologies and capabilities. This includes the development of advanced missile systems, cyber warfare capabilities, and a focus on enhancing the readiness and mobility of Russian troops. The goal is to create a military that can project power globally and respond rapidly to any threats. Significant investments have been made in modernizing the armed forces, developing new weapon systems, and conducting large-scale military exercises. These exercises serve multiple purposes. They demonstrate Russia's military capabilities, intimidate potential adversaries, and provide valuable training for Russian troops. The modernization efforts have also included reforms to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the military command structure, ensuring that Russia can conduct complex operations in diverse environments. This military buildup, coupled with Russia's willingness to use force, has raised concerns about a new Cold War and the potential for wider conflict. The international community remains deeply divided on how to respond to Russia's actions, with some advocating for increased sanctions and military deterrence, while others call for dialogue and engagement. The situation remains fluid and unpredictable, with the potential for significant geopolitical shifts in the coming years. Putin's Russia has become synonymous with information warfare, utilizing cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns to sow discord and advance its geopolitical interests. These tactics have been deployed effectively to influence elections, undermine trust in democratic institutions, and shape public opinion. The 2016 U.S. presidential election highlighted the extent of Russia's interference in Western democracies. Social media platforms were flooded with fake accounts and targeted advertisements designed to manipulate voters and sow division. These efforts demonstrated the potent threat posed by Russian disinformation in the digital age. Beyond elections, Russia has been accused of using cyber attacks to target critical infrastructure, financial institutions, and government agencies in various countries. These attacks highlight the vulnerability of modern societies to digital disruption and the asymmetric advantage that Russia enjoys in cyberspace. Putin's willingness to exploit these vulnerabilities has further strained relations with the West and raised the specter of a new era of cyber warfare.